Hi, in this part, I'm introducing the concept of bond and also how to value it. Why we have the valuation problem for bond? We know bond usually refers a liability. But actually it is a liability only for who borrow the money. So if it is the bond issued by the treasury, so the borrower is the treasury. If the bond is issued by a business entity, so the business entity is a borrower. Both have to value that bond and report it the liability in their balance sheet. But bond can also be assets for the lenders. So for lenders, they also need to value the bond to report it as an asset in their balance sheet. Okay, so next, what's the bond and the cash flow of the bond? So there are two cash flows of the bond or typical bonds. Okay, so if I use a time axis, this is now present 1, 2, 3, n minus 1, n. Okay, depends on the two cash flows. The first is the interest payment. Okay, so interest payment depends on the agreement. The interest can be paid semi-annually, quarterly, or annually. And the interest payment is always the same amount. The next one is this principal, which is due when the bond matures. Okay? So if I put the cash flows into a time axis, it is like this. Also, I assume the interest is paid at the end of each period. So this is the interest. I use I to represent the interest payment. Okay, so that they are all same amount. And by the end of n here, this point, when the bond is matured, there will be a principal. So that's the two cash flows. Because bond usually a long term, usually greater than 10 years. So we know this is a long time, so we should consider what? Time value of money. Okay, so the valuation of bond actually is to calculate the present value of these cash flows. So if we got the present value of the cash flows, the present value basically is the amount of liability or assets reported for either borrower or lenders. Okay, so that's the concept of bond. There are some other bonds, okay, but we only cover the very simple one. Now, we're going to apply what we learned. So for the interest payment, because all the interest payments are the same, and they are paid periodically, same intervals, that's what? Yeah, these cash flows actually is annuity, right? So like the example I raised here, it is paid by the end of each period. This is what? Yeah, it is ordinary annuity. Yeah, so first we calculate the present value of ordinary annuity. Then the principal, which is by the end of M, is just one cash flow, right? So actually we can calculate the present value of the principal. And this is a single sum problem. And the sum of both is the value of the bond. Okay, so is the value we reported as a liability in the borrower's balance sheet or assets in the lender's balance sheet. But here, there's some problem. Let's move down. So, when a firm issue a bond, there will be a face value which equals to the principal. Okay, so it also represents the bond payable from the perspective of the borrower. From lender's perspective, it is what a bond receivable. Okay, so so this is liability which is going to be due when the bond is mature. And also there's a interest. So this interest we call state rate or coupon rate in finance literature. Oh, sorry, it's coupon. So what's the meaning of coupon rate? Actually, the interest payment is a product of the principal or the face value of bond and coupon rate I. Because principal and interest coupon rate are all in agreement. Okay, it's determined when both parties sign the contract, so they are all fixed. So that means the interest payment is also fixed amount. That's why we can use treat it as annuity. Okay, but don't forget when we calculate present value, remember we need to use a interest rate to discount the cash flow to present, right? And that interest rate actually is market rate, or another name is cost of capital or cost of debt, or a discount rate, which is different from the coupon rate. Okay, so that's the some concepts of the bond. In the next video, I'm going to use an example.